Her family said no, but she chose him anyway. The night she packed her suitcase, her hands were shaking, not because she was afraid of leaving, but because she knew she might never be welcomed back the same way again. Outside her bedroom window, the city lights glowed calmly, unaware that inside that small room, a life was being torn between love and blood, between tradition and truth. She stood at the edge of a choice most people never imagine having to make, and in that moment, her heart whispered one name louder than every rule she had ever been taught. Before the story unfolds any further, take a moment. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and love that dares to stand against the world, please like this video, comment your thoughts, share it with someone who believes in love, and subscribe to the channel. Your support keeps stories like this alive. Her name was Emily, raised in a family where expectations were written long before she could understand them. She grew up in a comfortable home, surrounded by traditions that were followed without question. Her parents believed love should look a certain way, sound a certain way, and most importantly, come from the right background. They weren't cruel people, but they were firm believers that family honor mattered more than personal desire. Emily had always been the obedient daughter, the one who followed the path laid out for her, until life quietly introduced her to someone who would change everything. She met Arav during her final year at university. He was an Indian student far from home, carrying both ambition and loneliness in his eyes. What started as casual conversations slowly became long walks, shared dreams, and a deep understanding that felt effortless and rare. Arav didn't try to impress her with grand gestures. Instead, he listened. He remembered small details, respected her fears, and believed in her strength even when she doubted herself. With him, Emily felt seen not as a daughter or a responsibility, but as a human being with her own heart. As their bond grew, so did the weight of reality. Emily knew her family would never easily accept an Indian boy, someone from a different culture, religion, and way of life. At first, she tried to keep her love hidden, convincing herself that time would soften the truth. But love has a way of demanding honesty, and secrets only grow heavier with time. The day she finally told her parents, the air in the room changed forever. Disbelief turned into anger, anger turned into silence. Her parents spoke of sacrifice, of everything they had given her, of how she was throwing away her future. They warned her that choosing Arav meant losing them. They believed she was being blinded by emotion, that this love would eventually fade, leaving her alone and regretful. Emily listened through tears, not because she didn't understand their fear, but because they refused to understand. Her hard days turned into sleepless nights. Emily found herself trapped between two worlds, both demanding loyalty. On one side was her family, the people who raised her, supported her, and loved her in their own way. On the other side was Arav, the man who stood quietly beside her, never forcing her to choose, never asking her to fight battles alone. He told her that if she walked away, he would understand. That freedom, that selflessness, made her love him even more. The pressure became unbearable. Her family stopped talking about everyday things. Meals were silent. Smiles disappeared. Emily felt like a stranger in her own home. Every look reminded her that love, in their eyes, had conditions. She began to question herself, wondering if she was selfish, if love was worth this much pain. But every time she imagined a life without Arav, it felt empty, like living someone else's story. Arav faced his own struggles. Being far from home was never easy, but knowing he was the reason for Emily's pain made it heavier. He battled guilt, fear, and the unspoken worry that love might not be enough. Yet he never let bitterness touch his heart. He focused on building a future, believing that respect and patience could one day heal what anger had broken. The breaking point came when Emily was given an ultimatum: choose your family or choose him. There was no middle ground, no time for negotiation. That night, Emily sat alone, surrounded by memories of her childhood. She realized that love that demands you abandon yourself is not love, it is control. For the first time in her life, she chose not what was expected, but what was true. She left her home with a suitcase and a heart full of grief and hope. The world outside felt colder, but also honest. Arav didn't celebrate her decision, he held her while she cried for everything she was losing. Together they stepped into uncertainty, knowing the road ahead would be difficult, but at least it would be real. Life after that wasn't a fairy tale. They struggled financially. Emily faced judgment from relatives and old friends. There were nights filled with doubt, moments when the absence of her family felt unbearable. But there were also mornings filled with quiet strength, shared laughter, and the comfort of knowing she wasn't alone. Arav's culture slowly became familiar to her, rich with warmth, respect, and deep-rooted values that mirrored the love she had chosen. Over time, something unexpected happened. Distance softened anger. Silence gave space for reflection. Emily's parents watched from afar as their daughter didn't fall apart like they had feared. They saw her grow stronger, more confident, and genuinely happy. They saw Arav not as an outsider, but as a man who stood by their daughter without trying to erase who she was. The first message came quietly, without apology or explanation, just a simple question asking if she was well. Emily cried when she read it, not out of sadness but relief. Healing didn't happen overnight. It came slowly, through careful conversations, through actions rather than words. Arav never tried to prove himself. He simply remained consistent, respectful, and patient. When they finally met again, it wasn't perfect, but it was honest. Emily realized that love doesn't always break families. Sometimes it challenges them to grow. Her parents didn't fully understand her choice, but they began to accept it. And for Emily, that was enough. She had learned that choosing love doesn't mean abandoning your roots. It means planting new ones with courage. As the years passed, Emily often thought about that night she packed her suitcase. She understood now that bravery isn't loud or dramatic. Sometimes it's quiet, painful, and misunderstood. But it changes everything. By choosing love, she didn't lose herself. She found her voice. If this story is touching your heart right now, please take a moment to like this video, share it, and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this are meant to be felt, not forgotten. And before this story ends, I have a special request for you. Comment below and tell us whether you believe love should ever require such a sacrifice. Your words might help someone who is standing at the same crossroads today. Emily's journey reminds us that love is not about choosing against people, but choosing toward truth. She chose an Indian boy over her family, not because she loved them less, but because she finally learned to love herself enough to follow her heart.